He walked into the bridal boutique holding the hand of the woman who loved him. He never expected to see the face of the wife who destroyed him 7 years ago. He definitely never expected her to be working there, waiting. The glass doors of Vera Wang's Fifth Avenue salon whispered open, and young Taesung stepped into a world of white silk and champagne dreams. His fiancée Diane West squeezed his hand, her excitement radiating through her simple cotton dress. The kind she bought at Target, the kind that made him love her even more. "I can't believe we're actually here," Diane breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the crystal chandeliers, the endless racks of gowns that cost more than her annual teacher's salary. Taesung smiled, the expression still unfamiliar on a face that had spent years perfecting intimidation. In 39 years of clawing his way from poverty to power, building an empire that made men across 3 continents whisper his name in fear, he had never personally accompanied anyone dress shopping. But today something had pulled him here. Something he couldn't name. Something that felt like instinct. Welcome to the channel, beautiful souls. If stories of revenge, redemption, and dangerous love captivate you, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. New York? Paris? Somewhere in between? Your support means everything. Now let's dive back into Taesung's world. The boutique was elegant, too elegant for the kid who used to steal food from convenience stores. The walls were lined with mirrors that reflected infinite versions of wealth he'd once been denied. Soft piano music played from hidden speakers. A champagne bar sparkled near the entrance. His 2-man security detail waited by the Mercedes, watching through the glass. And then he saw her. She stood near the back of the showroom, her silhouette framed by a massive mirror, adjusting the train of a gown on a mannequin. Her hair fell in perfect waves, professionally styled, expensive. Her Louboutins clicked against the marble floor as she moved. Cartier bracelets glinted on her wrist, the kind she used to circle in magazines and leave open on his nightstand when he couldn't afford groceries. She turned, reaching for something on a glass shelf. And Taesung's breath stopped. Emily Rhodes. She hadn't noticed him yet. She was focused, completely absorbed in her work, her movements practiced and graceful. She looked exactly as she had 7 years ago. Polished, perfect, untouchable. The woman who had laughed at his empty wallet and called him worthless as she packed her Louis Vuitton bags. Taesung's hand tightened around Diane's. 7 years. 7 years since she'd walked out of his failing nightclub, out of his life without looking back. 7 years since she'd told him he would never be enough for a woman like her. He should leave. He should turn around, take Diane to another boutique, pretend he hadn't seen the ghost that still haunted his worst moments. But his feet wouldn't move. Then Emily looked up. Their eyes met across the showroom, and her professional smile transformed into something predatory. Recognition flashed in her gaze, followed immediately by calculation. She'd been waiting for him. Emily Rhodes arrived at Taesung's Tribeca penthouse exactly 15 minutes late, fashionably, deliberately, wearing a red Hervé Léger dress that cost more than Diane's monthly rent. She swept through the door with the confidence of someone who'd studied every detail of this space online, her eyes cataloging the restoration hardware furniture, the original artwork, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson. "What a charming place," Emily purred, accepting champagne from a server. Her gaze found Taesung across the room. "So, new money." Diane, radiant in her modest anthropology dress, navy blue with small flowers, bought on sale, rushed over to greet her. "Emily, I'm so glad you could make it. Let me introduce you to everyone." Taesung watched Emily work the room like a shark circling prey, complimenting the women on their brave fashion choices, and asking the men pointed questions about their connections to the host. She was mapping his world, identifying weaknesses. 30 minutes into the party, Emily found him alone on the balcony, checking his phone for threats of a different kind. "Quite the empire you've built, Taesung." She stood close enough that her Chanel No. 5 perfume invaded his senses, triggering memories he'd spent years burying. "I've done my research. The Biko Syndicate. Very impressive." His jaw tightened. "You need to leave." "Oh, I don't think so." Emily's smile was razor-sharp. She produced a small flash drive from her clutch, holding it up like a prize. "Remember when we were married? When you kept files at home because you were too paranoid to use cloud storage? I made copies. Everything. Your deals, your connections, your body's buried in New Jersey. all backed up in 3 different locations. The city lights blurred behind her as Taesung's world tilted. "You were nothing when I left," Emily continued, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. "A failing club owner who couldn't afford to keep me in the lifestyle I deserved. But now you're something. And that something should have been mine. What do you want?" "Obviously." She trailed one manicured finger down his lapel. "You have 2 weeks until your little wedding to come to your senses. Leave the kindergarten teacher. Marry someone who actually belongs in your world. Or I'll send these files to the FBI, the DA, and every news outlet in Manhattan." Before he could respond, Diane appeared in the doorway holding 2 glasses of champagne. "There you are. Emily, I brought you." Emily turned too quickly, too deliberately. The champagne glass flew from Diane's hand, drenching the front of her dress. The navy fabric darkened, spreading like a bruise. "Oh no." Emily gasped, all false concern. "I'm so sorry. Although..." She studied Diane's dress with theatrical dismay. "At least it wasn't expensive. Anthropology, right? Probably $30 on clearance." Diane's cheeks flushed. Several guests had turned to watch. Taesung stepped forward, rage building in his chest, but Emily's hand touched his arm. Her voice dropped to a whisper only he could hear. "Control yourself. Your temper is evidence too. Remember what you're capable of." "I certainly do." She released him and turned back to Diane with a sympathetic smile. "Let me help you clean up, sweetie. Women like us need to stick together." That night, after Emily left and the guests departed, Taesung checked his phone and felt his blood turn cold. Emily had followed Diane on Instagram. Worse, Diane had followed her back. The campaign had begun. Diane stood in the dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman, staring at her reflection in a $12,000 Oscar de la Renta gown, and felt like an imposter. "You look stunning," Emily declared, circling her like a fashion editor. "Although..." She tilted her head critically. "Maybe something with more structure? You want to look sophisticated, not like you're playing dress-up." The words landed like tiny cuts. Diane had thought she looked beautiful. Now she saw what Emily saw. A kindergarten teacher in a costume she couldn't afford, pretending to belong in a world of women who lunched at Le Bernardin and vacationed in Positano. "I don't know," Diane said softly, touching the silk. "It's so expensive." "Sweetheart, that's the point." Emily squeezed her shoulder with practiced sympathy. "Men like Taesung are used to a certain standard. Trust me, I learned that the hard way." Over the past week, Emily had become Diane's unexpected confidant. Coffee at Santa Ambrias. Shopping on Madison Avenue. Late-night texts offering advice about navigating Taesung's complicated world. Diane, who'd moved to New York from Ohio 3 years ago and still bought her groceries at Trader Joe's, was grateful for the guidance. She didn't notice the poison dripping into each conversation. The guidance came with gifts. A Cartier bracelet arrived at their door. From an old business associate, the card read. Diane showed it to Taesung, who went rigid. "Which associate?" It didn't say. That night at his club in Koreatown, 3 women in Dolce & Gabbana dresses surrounded Taesung's table, laughing too loudly, touching his arm too familiarly. Diane watched from across the room, Emily's words echoing. "He's surrounded by beautiful, sophisticated women every day. You need to make sure you're memorable." The anonymous text came 2 days later. "He's dangerous. You don't know what he's capable of. Get out while you can." Diane's hands shook as she read it. He thought about the security guards. The way Taesung's associates went silent when he entered rooms. The scars on his knuckles he claimed came from boxing. "You seem troubled," Emily observed over lattes at Bluestone Lane. "Is everything okay?" Diane wanted to confide in Taesung, but he'd been distant lately, disappearing for hours, making tense phone calls in Korean, watching Emily with an expression Diane couldn't read. What Diane didn't know, Taesung had spent the week investigating his ex-wife. His people had dug deep. 3 marriages since him. A hedge fund manager, a tech CEO, a Manhattan real estate developer. All ended in brutal divorces. All her settlements already spent on maintaining appearances while she drowned in debt. The Soho apartment she claimed to own? Rented. The vintage Chanel collection? Consignment. The perfect life. Smoke and mirrors. Emily Rhodes was desperate. And desperate people were the most dangerous kind. Taesung found her in that rented apartment on a Thursday evening, surrounded by sale tags she'd carefully removed from discount clothing. "Get out of Diane's life," he demanded. Emily smiled, holding up her phone. "I've already made contact with the FBI. One email from me and you're finished." She stood crossing to him. "But it doesn't have to be that way. Send the teacher back to Ohio. Give me what I'm owed." "You're owed nothing. We'll see what the federal prosecutor thinks." Outside, Diane sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks away, rereading the anonymous message, Emily's warnings circling her mind like sharks. She had no idea she was already drowning. The lunch at Sant'Ambria's started innocently enough. Burrata and heirloom tomatoes, sparkling water in crystal glasses, the kind of leisurely Wednesday afternoon meal that made Diane feel like she was living someone else's life. Then Emily leaned forward, her voice dropping to a concerned whisper. "Diane, I need to tell you something. As your friend." She hesitated, perfectly calibrated. "Do you know what Taesung actually does? The clubs, they're not just clubs. There are shipments coming through the ports, money being moved through shell companies. I saw things when we were married. Terrible things." The burrata turned to ash in Diane's mouth. "I'm telling you this because I care about you," Emily continued, touching Diane's hand. "You're sweet. Too sweet for this world. What if the FBI comes knocking? What if you become collateral damage?" That night, Diane confronted Taesung in their kitchen, her hands shaking as she gripped the marble countertop. "Is it true? What Emily said about your business?" Taesung's silence was an answer. "How much of this is a lie?" Diane's voice cracked. "How much of us is a lie? Everything with you is real. But everything else isn't?" She was crying now, mascara from Target running down her cheeks. "I'm marrying someone I don't even know." He reached for her. She stepped back. "I need space. I need to think." Taesung left, his jaw tight with rage that had nowhere to go. He didn't notice that some of his old security codes, the ones Emily had memorized 7 years ago, had never been changed. Diane discovered the Chanel No. 5 bottle at 11 p.m., placed carefully on her pillow like a gift. The note was written in elegant script on cream cardstock. "Some scents linger forever. Seduce some women. E." Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Photos loaded. Taesung and Emily on a beach in Turks and Caicos, laughing. Taesung kissing Emily's temple at sunset. Emily wearing a diamond that made Diane's engagement ring look like a Pandora charm. The caption, 7 years together. 7 months with you. Do the math, sweetie. Another photo. Emily in a wedding dress, Taesung gazing at her like she was the only woman in the world. Some loves are just placeholders. You understand? Diane sat on the bed, surrounded by the scent of perfume that wasn't hers, staring at evidence of a love she could never compete with. The next afternoon, driving her 10-year-old Camry home from PS 184, Diane was thinking about the photos when a black SUV appeared in her rearview mirror. Came too fast, too aggressive. She accelerated. It matched her speed. Then it hit her. Her Camry spun, tires screaming against asphalt. The world became broken glass and deployed airbags and the metallic taste of blood. When Taesung arrived at Mount Sinai Hospital, his hands were shaking, something his enemies had never achieved. He found Emily at her apartment 2 hours later, rage finally unleashed. "You tried to kill her." Emily's phone was already recording, positioned on the bookshelf behind her diptyque candles. "Prove it," she whispered. "Go ahead, Taesung. Show me what you're capable of. Show me the monster I married. The one who put 3 men in the Hudson River." His hand moved toward her throat. The red recording light blinked steadily. "That's it," Emily breathed. "Give me everything I need." The hospital flowers arrived in crystal vases from Bloomingdale's, white roses and lilies that made Diane's room smell like a funeral. Emily appeared behind them, immaculate in a Brunello Cucinelli cashmere coat, playing the concerned friend with Oscar-worthy precision. "Oh, sweetie." She set down a Williams-Sonoma gift basket, organic teas, imported chocolates, things Diane would never buy herself. "I've been so worried about you." Diane's ribs ached beneath the bandages. Vicodin made the world soft and blurry at the edges. "These things happen in his world," Emily said, settling into the visitor's chair. "The danger. The violence. It follows him like a shadow." He paused, studying her manicure. "Women like us, Women who understand men like Taesung, we know how to navigate it. But you? I'm not like you, Diane whispered. Exactly. Emily's smile was sympathetic poison. You're good. Pure. You deserve someone who comes home from a normal job, who doesn't have enemies trying to kill his fiancée. She leaned forward. I want to help you, Diane. I can give you $500,000. Enough to start over somewhere safe. Maybe back in Ohio. The number hung in the air like a lifeline. You don't have that kind of money, Diane said, but even through the medication she felt the doubt creeping in. I will. Soon. Emily's eyes gleamed. Just say yes and I'll handle everything. You can disappear before someone finishes what they started on that road. After Emily left, Diane lay in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling tiles, wondering if the woman was right. Across the city in a private room above his Koreatown club, Taesung sat across from Park Minjun, his most trusted lieutenant, reviewing surveillance footage that made his blood run cold. Emily. Meeting with Viktor Sokolov at a Brighton Beach restaurant. The Russians' organization had been trying to move into Taesung's territory for 2 years. Minjun translated the lip reading. His shipping routes. The teacher is the weak point. Make it look like an accident. She's trying to have Diane killed, Taesung said, his voice dead calm, the tone his enemies feared most. What do you want to do? 2 folders lay on the table. The first contained evidence Taesung could give the FBI. His own operations, his own crimes, everything that would destroy his empire but might bury Emily in the process. The second contained Emily's daily schedule, her patterns, the places where someone could disappear in New York if you had the right connections. One path made him a federal witness. The other made him the monster he'd promised Diane he wasn't. I need time, Taesung said. But time was a luxury Emily wasn't giving him. At Mount Sinai Hospital, Diane struggled out of bed for the bathroom, dragging her 4-pole. She was washing her hands when the door opened behind her. Emily's reflection appeared in the mirror and the sweet act had vanished. Let's stop pretending, Emily said, locking the door. Her voice was ice and venom. You think your little love story matters? He was mine for 7 years. Built his empire thinking about me. You're a consolation prize, sweetheart. A rebound in a Target dress. She moved closer, trapping Diane against the sink. He was mine first. He'll be mine last. And you? Emily's smile was a blade. You're just in the way. Are you hooked yet? If you're following this twisted tale of love and betrayal, drop a comment below and hit subscribe so you never miss what Emily does next. Trust me, it gets even more intense. Now back to the story. Diane sat on the hospital bed, hands trembling, and finally told Taesung everything. Emily's bathroom confession. The threats. The way she'd spoken about ownership as if Taesung were a Louis Vuitton bag she'd left in storage and now wanted back. I need the truth, Diane whispered. All of it. So he told her. About Emily's abandonment when his first nightclub was failing, the repo men taking his furniture from a studio apartment in Queens. About the evidence she'd stolen, files that could send him to a federal supermax for life. About the woman who'd left him with nothing but rage, and how that rage had built an empire. She didn't just leave, Taesung said, his voice raw. She laughed. Said I'd always be nothing. That she deserved better than a husband who shopped at Costco. Diane listened, tears streaming down her face, but not for the reasons he expected. You should have told me, she said. You let her into our lives, into my life, and you knew what she was. The betrayal wasn't about his past, it was about his silence. I need time. I need to think somewhere she isn't. By morning Diane was gone. Her sister picked her up in a Subaru Outback, heading to Stamford, Connecticut, to a world of soccer practice and Pottery Barn furniture where mafia ex-wives didn't exist. Emily watched from a rented Mercedes 2 blocks away, tracking Diane's departure through binoculars like a hunter watching wounded prey flee. That evening she appeared at Taesung's penthouse wearing Tom Ford and carrying a Louis Vuitton briefcase that held her terms. She's gone, Emily announced, pouring herself his Macallan without asking. So now we can talk like adults. Get out. In a minute. She opened the briefcase, sliding documents across his Restoration Hardware coffee table. Here's my offer. $50 million and a signed confession that you abused me, forced me to leave 7 years ago, traumatized me so badly I needed therapy and security. Give me that and I'll destroy every piece of evidence I have. You'll never hear from me again. Taesung stared at the papers. Or, Emily continued, moving closer, you divorce the kindergarten teacher, marry me, and we rebuild what should have been ours together. I'll be the wife you need, the one who belongs at expensive restaurants, who knows which fork to use at charity galas. In exchange, Diane lives. She goes back to her small life and we pretend she never existed. This was never about love, Taesung said slowly, understanding crystallizing. It was always about money. Love. Emily laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. Love is for women who can't afford Chanel. I invested 7 years in you. I'm owed a return. He stood, towering over her, and his voice was quiet steel. You're right about one thing. I was nothing 7 years ago. He picked up her documents and dropped them in the trash. The difference is Diane loved me anyway. She loved me when I told her I grew up stealing food. When I showed her the scars. You never could. Emily's perfectly made-up face twisted into something ugly. Get out of my home. You'll regret this. She grabbed her briefcase, her Louboutins clicking violently against marble. At the door she turned back and the mask had completely shattered. I'm going to make you both suffer. I'm going to take everything, your empire, your freedom, your precious little teacher. And you'll watch it all burn. The door slammed. Taesung's phone rang. Viktor Sokolov's name appeared on the screen. The war had begun. 5 days before the wedding that would never happen, Emily Rhodes declared total war. The FBI raids came at dawn. 17 simultaneous hits on Taesung's clubs, warehouses and restaurants across 3 boroughs. Agents in windbreakers stormed through his Koreatown headquarters, seizing computers, files and ledgers while customers filming on their iPhones posted it all to TikTok in real time. Emily had kept copies of everything. And now the government had them too. 3 days before the wedding, Diane was helping her sister fold laundry in Stamford, normal, domestic, safe, when Taesung's head of security crashed through the front door, shoving her to the floor as bullets shattered the kitchen window. The hitman was former military, professional, Emily's $50,000 solution to her, Diane problem. He died in the backyard with 2 bullets in his chest, but not before traumatizing Diane's 9-year-old nephew, who'd been watching cartoons on his iPad in the next room. 2 days before the wedding, Emily's Instagram campaign went viral. Professional photos, some real from their marriage, some artfully doctored, showed a younger Taesung with his hands around her throat, her body covered in what looked like bruises. The captions were literary, devastating. #MeToo, #SurvivorStory, #HeWasMonster. Within hours, protests appeared outside his remaining businesses. News vans parked on his street. His investors demanded meetings. His legitimate fronts, the ones he'd built trying to go straight, collapsed like houses of cards. Everything he'd spent 7 years building was burning. That night, Taesung sat in a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse private room with Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Chin, pushing a thumb drive across the table. Everything, he said. Every name, every operation, every dollar moved through every account. The entire Korean syndicate network in the Northeast. Including my own crimes. Chen's expression didn't change. In exchange for? Witness protection for myself and Diane West. A plea deal, 10 years maximum. And Emily Rhodes prosecuted for conspiracy to commit murder, extortion and blackmail. You're asking to destroy your own empire. I'm asking to save the woman I love. Chen studied him. Most men in your position would disappear Emily Rhodes instead. Keep her. Simpler. I'm not most men. Not anymore. The thumb drive sat between them like a confession, like redemption, like the end of everything he'd become. I'll present it to the review board, Chin said finally. At midnight, Taesung called Diane from a burner phone. She answered on the first ring, her voice thick with tears and insomnia. I'm turning myself in, he told her. Federal witness. I'll lose everything, the businesses, the money, the life. I'll go to prison. Probably for years. He paused. I need to know if you'll wait. If you'll still want me when I'm nobody again. The silence stretched so long he thought she'd hung up. Taesung. Diane's voice was steady now, stronger than he'd ever heard it. I didn't fall in love with your penthouse or your Mercedes or your empire. I fell in love with the man who cried watching Pixar movies. Who remembered my students' names. Who was brave enough to want something different than what he was. She took a breath. I fell in love with you. Just you. And that's who I'll wait for. Across the city, Emily Rhodes received a notification. Taesung had posted on Instagram for the first time in months. A photo of a simple gold band, Diane's engagement ring with one line of caption. Some loves are worth losing everything for. Emily threw her iPhone against her apartment wall, watching it shatter into expensive pieces. She wasn't done yet. The FBI safe house in Westchester was supposed to be secure. 3 armed agents rotating shifts, panic buttons in every room. But Emily Rhodes had learned during her 3 previous divorces that everyone had a price. For Agent Marcus Webb, that price was $200,000 and a plane ticket to Costa Rica. Diane was drinking chamomile tea from a Target mug watching reality TV, when Webb walked into the living room with a syringe. She woke up 6 hours later in the Plaza Hotel's grand bridal suite, zip-tied to a Louis XVI chair, her head pounding. Emily stood by the window in a crimson Valentino gown, holding a Glock 19 like an evening clutch. You're awake. Good. He checked her Cartier watch. He'll be here in 20 minutes. The suite was decorated for a wedding that would never happen. White roses from the best florist in Manhattan, champagne chilling in Tiffany ice buckets, cameras positioned at 3 angles, red recording lights blinking steadily. What are you doing? Diane's voice cracked. Finishing what I started. Emily's smile was serene, terrifying. You see, I realized something. Taesung thinks he can sacrifice his empire and play hero. He thinks love conquers all like some Hallmark movie. She laughed. But I know what he really is. What he's always been. And I'm going to prove it. Taesung's burner phone had received a single text. Plaza Hotel. Presidential bridal suite. Come alone or I kill her slow. He told the FBI he was going. They told him to wait for backup. He went anyway. The suite door was unlocked, an invitation. He found them in the main room. Diane bound and terrified, Emily holding a weapon with the comfort of someone who'd practiced. Close the door, Emily commanded. He did. Here's how this works. Emily gestured to a laptop open on the marble desk, a Cayman Islands bank account waiting. You wire $50 million to this account right now. Then you pick up this gun. She nudged a second Glock across the floor with her Louboutin. And you kill her. Diane made a sound behind the gag. You're insane, Taesung said. I'm practical. Emily's eyes glittered. See, if you wire the money and walk away, I kill her anyway and send the footage to the FBI. You choosing money over love. If you refuse, I kill her and you, and I disappear with nothing, which frankly, I'm willing to accept at this point. She moved closer to Diane, pressing the gun against her temple. But if you kill her yourself, I have leverage forever. You become mine again. My monster. My king. Under my control. The cameras recorded everything. The suite, the weapons, Diane's tears streaming down her face. Prove you're the king you claim to be, Emily whispered. Eliminate your weakness. Show me the man who built an empire on violence and fear. Or prove I was right all along. You're nothing but a pathetic man who'll never be enough. Taesung looked at Diane, at the woman who'd loved him when he was nobody, who'd waited for him through everything. Then he looked at Emily, at 7 years of poison finally distilled into this single moment. And he reached for the gun. Taesung picked up the gun and Emily's triumphant smile began to spread. Then he did something she never anticipated. He set it down carefully on the marble side table out of reach, and looked at her with an expression that wasn't rage or fear or violence. It was pity. You want to know the truth about the night you left? His voice was quiet, steady. I stood on my apartment balcony in Queens for 3 hours. 23 floors up. I kept thinking about how easy it would be to step over. To stop hearing your voice telling me I'd never be enough. Emily's smile faltered. Every ruthless decision I made after that, every line I crossed, every man I hurt, it was all trying to fill the void you left. Trying to prove you wrong. He took a step closer. You didn't leave a man, Emily. You created a monster. And I'm done being what you made me. You're stalling, Emily hissed, but her gun hand wavered. FBI. The shout came from the hallway, followed by pounding on the door. Emily Rhodes, drop your weapon. Her face went white as she understood. The meeting was a trap. Everything recorded. Agents positioned throughout the plaza. You brought them. Her voice cracked. You're really choosing her over. She didn't finish. Her free hand moved to her Chanel clutch, pulling out a phone. On the screen, a detonator app, counting down. 147. 146. 145. C4 charges, Emily said, her composure shattering. Hidden in the air vents behind the mirrors. I'd rather we all die than watch you ride off into your pathetic sunset with her. The cameras captured it all. Her confession, her madness, her final play. You're insane, Sung breathed. I'm what you made me, she shot back, throwing his words at him. Your rejection made me this. 120, 119, 118. Taesung looked at the device, at Emily's trembling hand, at the air vent above them where death was hidden. He could try to defuse it. He'd learned demolitions in his younger, more desperate years. But it would take time they didn't have, and Diane would die watching him gamble their lives. Or he could choose her. Finally, he grabbed a champagne bottle from the Tiffany bucket and hurled it at Emily's gun hand. The Glock clattered across marble. In 3 strides he reached Diane, his keys sawing through the zip ties. No. Emily lunged for the gun. 054, 053, 052. Taesung lifted Diane, her legs weak, and ran for the door. FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn, shouting commands Emily couldn't hear over her own screaming. You're abandoning me again. You're leaving me. Taesung. Building evacuation. An agent grabbed them in the hallway. Move, move, move. The plaza erupted into chaos. Guests in Prada and Tom Ford running for exits, staff abandoning their posts, sirens wailing. Taesung carried Diane through the gilded lobby, through the Fifth Avenue entrance, across the street to Central Park. Behind them, Emily stood alone in the bridal suite, surrounded by FBI agents trying to talk her down, the detonator still counting in her hand. 023, 022, 021. Drop the device. The agents' voices overlapped. Drop it now. Emily looked at the cameras still recording, at the empire of revenge that had collapsed around her, at the man disappearing into the distance with someone else's love. Her finger hovered over the button. 010, 009, 008. You'll never be enough, she whispered to no one. And pressed stop. The bomb was fake. Emily had downloaded a timer app from the App Store and hidden nothing but designer shopping bags in the air vents. But her confession was real, her intent clear enough for the federal prosecutor. 23 years. No parole eligibility for 12. Taesung's sentence was lighter. 18 months minimum security at FCI Otisville for racketeering and conspiracy. His empire was dismantled piece by piece, sold off, distributed to creditors and victims. The penthouse went to a hedge fund manager. The clubs became a chain restaurant franchise. Everything he'd built turned to ash and paperwork. Every weekend, Diane made the 90-minute drive from a small rental in Middletown, visiting through plexiglass, talking about her students and books she was reading and the life they'd build when he got out. You don't have to wait, Taesung told her once, 6 months in. I know, Diane said and kept coming. On a cold March morning he walked out of FCI Otisville wearing donated Levi's and a Hanes t-shirt, carrying nothing but a manila envelope of release papers. Diane waited by her repaired Camry. Same dent in the bumper, new air freshener hanging from the mirror, holding daffodils from Trader Joe's. She wore jeans and a Target sweater. No makeup. Hair in a simple ponytail. She'd never looked more beautiful. Ready? She asked. Yeah. They married at Manhattan City Hall on a Thursday afternoon. No guests except Diane's sister and nephew. No photographer except someone's iPhone. Diane wore a cream-colored anthropology dress she'd bought on clearance. Taesung wore a men's warehouse suit, the first thing that fit. The clerk pronounced them husband and wife, and when they kissed, Taesung felt something he'd never felt at the height of his power. Peace. Walking down the courthouse steps, Diane squeezed his hand. Do you regret it? Losing everything? Taesung looked at the woman who'd visited him every weekend, who'd loved him when he was inmate #87234-054, who'd chosen him over safety and security and sanity. I have everything that matters, he said. At FCI Danbury, Emily Rhodes sat in her cell wearing an orange jumpsuit that Neiman Marcus didn't carry, surrounded by confiscated Louis Vuitton and Chanel that she'd never wear again. The wedding announcement arrived in the mail. A simple card, no embossing, printed at FedEx office. Diane West and Taesung Young were married March 15 in New York City. She tore it into pieces, then smaller pieces, then confetti that scattered across her cell floor like the life she'd destroyed chasing things that never mattered. 6 months later, in a small apartment in Portland, Oregon, Taesung and Diane sat on a second-hand couch from IKEA, watching the sunset through windows that didn't overlook the Hudson. He managed a Korean barbecue restaurant. She taught second grade at a public school. Their combined income was less than his monthly penthouse maintenance fees used to be. Happy? Diane asked, her head on his shoulder. Taesung thought about the empire, the fear, the power, the man he'd been when he thought being enough meant having everything. Yeah, he said and meant it. Outside, the sky turned purple and gold, and somewhere in the distance, a new life was beginning. The past, with all its poison, all its designer labels, all its empty promises, was finally mercifully gone. They were free. And that's where their story ends, or perhaps where it truly begins. If this tale of dangerous love and redemption touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment letting me know. Team Diane, or did you have any sympathy for Emily? And where in the world are you watching from?